In the final days of World War II, Nazi Germany concealed secrets so horrifying they continue to unsettle historians today. Hidden vaults filled with gold, abandoned prototype superweapons, and entire secret cities carved into remote mountain ranges. Each discovery cracked open a new level of dread, exposing the ruthless extremes of a regime obsessed with domination at any cost. Stay with us as we uncover the 15 most disturbing Nazi Germany discoveries from World War II. Number 15. Hortonho 229. Years before stealth aircraft were a reality, the Hortonho 229 was already breaking boundaries in German skies. Designed by Reimar and Walter Horton, it ditched the tail fin entirely and used a sleek flying wing layout. Its body was made from wood bonded with charcoal resin, an attempt to absorb radar signals. Two Jumo 004 jet engines were buried inside the wings, allowing it to reach speeds up to 977 kilometers, outpacing Allied fighters of the time. But development hit a wall when the second prototype caught fire mid-flight. Allied bombing raids, supply shortages, and Nazi bureaucracy shut down further work. When U.S. forces arrived at Gotha's factory in 1945, only pieces of a third prototype remained. That airframe now hangs in the Smithsonian. Decades later, wind tunnel tests confirmed it had a surprisingly low radar profile. Though it never reached combat, its shape and concept would go on to influence future aircraft like the B-2 Spirit. Number 14. The Diglock Project. Among all the unverified Nazi projects, Diglock out as the most weird and debated. Wartime interrogations hinted at a top-secret program, allegedly conducted at the Wenceslas mine on the Czech border, under a classified SS initiative named Kronos. Locals were warned away with death threats. Years later, witnesses described a bell-shaped device surrounded by rotating drums filled with a metallic mercury-like substance. Some believed it was meant for anti-gravity research. Others suspected particle beams or time manipulation. No blueprints ever surfaced. What remains are scattered reports, odd test rigs still standing in concrete, and radiation readings around the site. Polish and Czech researchers measured spikes in background levels, but found nothing conclusive. Post-war theories mixed truth with myth, and soon UFO tales attached themselves to the story. Whether it was failed science or something more, it was not normal. Number 13. Hitler's Ukrainian bunker. Near Vinnytsia, hidden among pine trees, sits one of Nazi Germany's most chilling wartime installations, the Werewolf Complex. Built between December 1941 and June 1942 by nearly 4,000 Soviet prisoners of war, who were executed after completing the work, it stretched across more than 80 structures, including concrete bunkers, staff quarters, and even a swimming pool. The bunkers were fortified with 2.5-meter-thick walls to resist bombing. Hitler used this base during 3 trips between 1942 and 1943, issuing key orders like Directive 45, which led to the disastrous splitting of Army Group South and the defeat at Stalingrad. This site also hosted high-level Nazi commanders and served as a command hub for the Eastern Front. As Soviet forces advanced in 1944, German troops demolished most of the site to avoid its capture. Some remains, like the pool and foundation slabs, are still visible today. Though it operates as an open-air museum, critics say it fails to fully address the brutal atrocities tied to this region. Number 12. Higerlock Reactor Cave. Below a brewery in the town of Higerlock, Nazi scientists attempted to control the atom. It was 1944, and Allied bombings had forced physicists to relocate their nuclear efforts underground. Inside a carved-out limestone cavern, more than 600 uranium cubes were suspended in heavy water smuggled from Norway, an effort led by physicist Werner Heisenberg. The goal was a functioning reactor. Supplies were limited, calculations were revised constantly, and the risk of radiation or structural collapse was always looming. SS guards kept watch above ground while the team worked under pressure that was as political as it was scientific. On April 23, 1945, American forces seized the site before the reactor reached criticality. The materials were shipped to the U.S. for analysis. Today, visitors can stand before a life-size replica inside the original cave, glowing faintly blue under lights mimicking nuclear energy. It's just super scary. Number 11. Wolf's Lair Underground Complex. Inside the Masurian woods of present-day Poland lies the shattered remains of the Wolf's Lair, Hitler's eastern military headquarters. Built in 1941, the complex sprawled across 70 hectares, camouflaged with netting and pine branches, protected by barbed wire, mines, and layers of security. The bunkers were surrounded by forests and linked through underground corridors that included living quarters, command rooms, and even a cinema. It was here that Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg placed a briefcase bomb in July 1944, hoping to end Hitler's life. The blast killed 4 men, but Hitler survived with minor injuries. In the aftermath, security intensified. Random checks and armed patrols made the compound feel like a prison. By January 1945, with the Red Army closing in, the Germans packed the site with explosives and destroyed most of it during their retreat. Today, moss covers what's left. Stairwells lead into flooded bunkers, and twisted rebar hangs from cracked ceilings, silent echoes of a command post built on fear. Number 10. U-864 and the Mercury time bomb. In early 1945, Nazi Germany sent U-864 on a high-stakes mission to Japan. The 73-meter submarine was loaded with nearly 1,900 canisters of liquid mercury, plus advanced military blueprints. It left Bergen under radio silence, aiming to cross the globe. British codebreakers intercepted the plan and dispatched HMS Venturer. In an underwater hunt lasting hours, Venturer launched torpedoes while submerged, pulling off the first submarine kill from beneath the surface. U-864 was torn apart and sank 150 meters deep off Norway's coast. For decades, mercury from the wreck has leaked into the seafloor, contaminating fish like cod and crab. Norway placed fishing bans across the region. Multiple cleanup options were considered, including dismantling the wreck, which risked further spread. In the end, authorities opted to seal it under layers of gravel and concrete. Work to contain it fully is expected to finish by 2026. The site remains a slow-moving hazard, proof that some threats from war never disappear. Number 9. Operation Burnhard Forgery Scheme. Inside Sachsenhausen concentration camp, a group of 142 prisoners, engravers, printers, and bankers, were forced into one of the war's most bizarre missions: counterfeit currency. Under SS orders, they reproduced British pound notes with near-perfect detail. Watermarks, security threads, and exact ink. Everything was replicated by hand. The idea was to crash the British economy or fund German intelligence through fake money. The forgers lived in Block 19, slightly better fed but always under threat of execution if a single flaw was found. By 1945, they had printed over 130 million pounds. As Allied forces advanced, crates of currency and printing plates were hauled to Lake Toplitz and dumped. Post-war divers recovered portions of the stash, confirming its scale. Surviving forgers later testified at Nuremberg, offering rare insight into how economic sabotage was weaponized. Museums now display the fake notes alongside the stories of men forced to perfect their craft, used not for profit, but for war. Number 8. Berlin's Flack Towers. The skyline of wartime Berlin was dominated by massive flak towers, concrete blocks armed with 128mm anti-aircraft guns and surrounded by bunkers deep enough to shelter thousands. Built at sites like the Berlin Zoo, Friedrichshain and Humboldthain, these fortresses weren't just defensive positions. They were emergency hospitals, museum vaults, and refugee shelters. With walls over 4 meters thick, they could withstand direct hits. Civilians huddled inside while the guns above fired at Allied bombers. During the Soviet assault in 1945, the towers shifted from anti-air to ground defense, turning city blocks into brutal war zones. After Germany's surrender, efforts to demolish the structures mostly failed. The scale of their construction made them nearly indestructible. Today, one tower still stands in Humboldthain, repurposed as a climbing wall and tech hub. Its past remains embedded in its concrete, visible in every scarred wall and welded stairwell, a relic that outlived the regime it once served. Number 7. The Ree Complex. In Poland's Owl Mountains, the Ree's tunnel network remains one of the most massive construction sites left behind by the Nazis. Dug by concentration camp prisoners under SS oversight, it was intended as a self-contained underground city, equipped with factories, bunkers, and shelter for Hitler himself. Work began in 1943. The digging never stopped, day or night. Prisoners blasted rock, poured concrete, and laid tracks while surviving on watery soup and moldy bread. An estimated 5,000 died in the process. When Soviet forces closed in, German engineers sealed tunnels with explosives and fled, leaving behind machines, fuel drums, and equipment marked with the Reich insignia. Today, much of it remains unexplored due to collapsed sections and suspected traps. Some tunnels are open to the public, but the deeper layers are still off-limits. Historians continue searching for blueprints or directives, hoping to understand the true scope of a project that consumed lives without ever being finished. Number 6. Pamunda Weapons Facility. On the Baltic coast, Pamunda was the birthplace of Nazi Germany's long-range weapons program. Here, under heavy secrecy, engineers developed the V-1 flying bomb and the V-2 rocket, the first man-made object to reach space. What began as a pine-covered peninsula transformed into a massive launch and testing facility. Forced laborers poured concrete, assembled guidance systems, and worked under brutal conditions. In 1943, British bombers targeted the site during Operation Hydra, killing engineers and slowing progress. But by 1944, V-1 drones buzzed toward London, and V-2 rockets struck without warning, leaving devastation in their wake. The weapons didn't alter the war's outcome, but marked the beginning of modern rocketry. When Soviet troops arrived, most key components had already been moved west for U.S. capture. What's left are shattered bunkers and warped steel tracks, reminders of a program that paired scientific ambition with exploitation and death on a massive scale. Number 5. Stolen art in the Alta salt mine. As Nazi forces lost ground, convoys packed with Europe's greatest stolen art rolled into the salt tunnels of Alta. The mine's deep chambers were filled with masterpieces: Vermeer's The Art of Painting, Michelangelo's Bruges Madonna, the Ghent altarpiece, and thousands more. The conditions were ideal for preservation, but deadly for the laborers forced to build makeshift storage inside. SS officers had wired the entire place with explosives, ready to blow the vault if Allied troops got too close. In a quiet act of rebellion, local miners rerouted the detonators and disabled charges to protect the art. When U.S. Monuments men entered the mine on May 8, 1945, they found paintings wrapped in rugs, explosives diffused, and handwritten inventories cataloging every stolen piece. More than 1.2 million objects were eventually recovered. Many original owners never returned, leaving museums to house pieces without their real names. Number 4. Harz Mountains Ammunition Complex. As Allied bombers wiped out German factories, the Nazis moved production underground. In the Harz Mountains, over 20 kilometers of tunnels were made by prisoners pulled from Buchenwald. The work was punishing, with poor lighting, collapsing ceilings, and clouds of dust filling every shift. Inside these caverns, they built parts for rifles, tanks, and Me-262 jet fighters. Some crews were buried alive in cave-ins. Others starved or collapsed mid-task. SS guards linked meals to productivity. If you didn't hit your quota, you didn't eat. By April 1945, the tunnels were filled with weapons, rocket parts, and thousands of bodies dumped or left behind. When American forces entered, they documented what was found and cleared active explosives. Even today, heavy rains sometimes unearth leftover munitions. These tunnels are sealed off now, toxic from both chemicals and what they represent, a buried graveyard of machines built by hands that never got to leave. Number 3. The Amber Room's vanishing. Once called the eighth wonder of the world, the Amber Room was a glowing chamber of fossilized amber, mirrors, and gold leaf panels gifted to Russia in the 18th century. Installed at the Catherine Palace near St. Petersburg, it drew visitors from across Europe. When German troops invaded in 1941, museum staff tried to hide the panels behind wallpaper. It didn't work. Nazi officers dismantled the room, packed it into crates, and rebuilt it inside Königsberg Castle. As the city fell to Allied bombs in 1945, the room vanished. Some say it burned. Others claim it was moved before the end. Searches have turned up little beyond rumors: submerged tunnels, collapsed vaults, and scattered fragments. Theories stretch from mines in the Ore Mountains to sunken Baltic freighters. In 2003, Russia unveiled a full reconstruction, but the original remains missing. Whatever happened, it's one of the war's most enduring mysteries, an artwork that became a ghost. Number 2. Channel Islands Bunker Network. The Channel Islands, Jersey, Guernsey, Alderney, and Sark, became Nazi-occupied British territory in 1940. German forces fortified the coasts with thick-walled bunkers, artillery platforms, and underground tunnels. Construction was led by Organization Tot, which brought in forced laborers from across Europe. They were underfed, overworked, and often left to die beneath the stone. Radar stations, hospitals, and ammunition stores were buried in the cliffs, while German troops above lived in relative comfort. When D-Day bypassed the islands, these fortifications became isolated. Supplies dwindled. Soldiers resorted to bartering guns for food. After surrendering on May 9, 1945, British forces entered a surreal scene: bunkers stuffed with moldy rations, rusting artillery, and rooms never used in battle. Today, restoration teams map and preserve what remains. Peeling ceilings still drip onto rust-covered bunks. Though the guns never fired in major combat, the human cost of building this unused fortress remains visible in every darkened corridor. Number 1. The Walberers Gold Train Rumor. In late 1944, locals near Walberers began whispering about a train, armored, sealed, and loaded with Nazi gold, that disappeared into the hillside as Soviet forces advanced. Some swore they saw it enter a tunnel near the Rakow-Walberers line. After the war, entrances were blocked by Soviet engineers, and stories spread about poison gas, tripwires, and vanished maps. Then, in 2015, 2 men reignited the legend by filing a claim. Radar scans had detected a long metal object underground. Excavation began, media flooded the site, but nothing turned up except rocks and mining debris. Historians point to evidence that valuables from Breslau were transported by truck, not rail. Still, the tale lives on. Souvenir mugs with gold Zug logos fill shop windows, and local tours cash in on the mystery. No proof has ever surfaced, but for many, the missing gold train isn't about treasure. It's about a war that ended with too many secrets still buried. Hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please like it, share it, and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you pretty soon.